Thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football, the 4-1-2. It's a great day to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Let's jump right in. You know, I feel that the Pittsburgh Steelers have a major problem on their hands, and I'm not trying to make this a bigger deal than what it is. It's a huge deal. It's a big deal. It's a major problem. The offensive line position in general is the most unselfish group or actions in all of sports. The offensive lineman in the NFL and college football, even in high school football, even in Pop Warner, it's the most unselfish position on the field. You know what drives me crazy? Especially in the NFL, because you see the running backs and the wide receivers and the quarterbacks, they know how hard these offensive linemen work. And when some of these so-called professionals score a touchdown and the big hogs run down there to hug them or, congratulate them or celebrate, nothing drives me crazier than watching a wide receiver or a running back just blow them off, not even acknowledge them, nothing. When I say the word hate is strong, when I say I hate that quality in a human being, I absolutely despise that quality in a human being. Because if it wasn't for the offensive line, you can't do anything on a football field in the NFL, college, high school, Pop Warner. You can't do anything. And some of these players, they really think they're the center of the universe. So sometimes I can understand why the offensive linemen have the attitude that they do in 2025. But guys, I know it's easy for me to say because I'm not out there blocking for people at 300 pounds and, you got to eat 7 times a day to keep your weight up and all that type of stuff, and it's hot. But you got to be bigger than that. You got to be the bigger man in that situation. You got to take the higher road. You got to take pride. I remember Mark Schlereth from the Washington Redskins. He used to talk about this all the time, how the offensive linemen there, they had their own family. And after practice, they would go into a shed and all drink a beer together. And it was very rare that they invited anybody else inside that little shed for a beer, ever, especially offensive players. And they took pride in knowing they're not going to get the credit that they deserve. And I remember Mark Schlereth telling that story on ESPN. And I always felt like the linemen from that time period, look at Big Ben's offensive lineman in 2009 when the Pittsburgh Steelers won the Super Bowl. Marvell Smith, left tackle, left guard, Alan Fenica, center, Kendall Simmons, right guard, Chris Kimiatu, and right tackle, Willie Colon. Do you really think that if those players allowed a sack, they wouldn't go help up Big Ben? Do you think that, for instance, if a defensive player took a cheap shot at Big Ben, that there wouldn't be a fight on the field? Of course there would. And I'm not trying to cover every team. I'm not here to cover every team, especially the Patriots, the Redskins, and everybody else. But I remember this specifically with Tom Brady. The Patriots played the Seahawks, and Richard Sherman, he thought he was, God of the universe. And after the game, Richard Sherman is screaming in Tom Brady's face, and not one offensive lineman came over and punched Richard Sherman. I mean, if I'm a defensive player on the Patriots and you're going after my quarterback like that, I'm telling you, I don't care about the fine. I don't care about the consequences, especially Richard Sherman and his big mouth. We're throwing down. Win, lose, or draw, we're fighting. And that attitude in the NFL, that's why I always say today's players are not my most favorite people in general, but today's players, they don't have the same attitude as the players that played before them. And it absolutely drives me crazy. It drives me nuts. And nothing ever changes in football. The most physical teams, let me stop that. The most disciplined physical teams are the teams that win championships. You can't play football and not be physical. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, we have lost that smash mouth identity on the offensive line. And I'm praying for the best this year. I saw a lot of good things last year. I mean, the preseason this year, as far as running the ball, has been abysmal. I mean, it should be a concern that the Pittsburgh Steelers cannot run the football in the preseason. I don't know how anybody could say, oh, it's not a big deal. It's a big deal. Averaging 2 yards a carry. I mean, let's get into this article and I'll go from there. Former Steelers offensive line critical of Pat Meyer after Aaron Rodgers called out group. Culture should have been set forth already. I understand that you want a certain culture, but there's certain things that you're either born with or you're not born with. And in today's players, I don't know if they're not born with it. Maybe some aren't born with it, or it's just a different type of attitude. It's like, well, the offensive players don't thank me after we score a touchdown, so you don't F him when he gets hit. I don't know what's going on, but I don't like it at all. I don't like this type of attitude. I know in 2009 with the Steelers defense, Steelers offense, it's a very painful day. Very, very physical, angry day of football, and I absolutely love it. And I don't know what's going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers and their offensive line, but if they don't get it together, we got problems. Former Steelers offensive line, Trey Essex, was in favor of keeping Pat Meyer this year, but he wants to see the O-line coach improve the culture. Specifically, he took issues with something quarterback Aaron Rodgers said he had to do, which has been an ongoing theme, according to Rodgers early in camp. He got on the O-line for not helping their quarterbacks up. Could you imagine that? You give up a sack, your quarterback gets absolutely crushed, and you don't even say to yourself, let me help him up. Man, that's, I don't know what could be going through your mind where you think that's acceptable on a football field. I get it, offensive lineman. You don't get the credit you deserve. Really, and Mark Schleyer said this too. The only time you hear an offensive lineman's name usually is when he messes up. When they're doing everything right, real football people will acknowledge it. Does the media acknowledge it? Do the fan base it? Not really. I understand where you're coming from, big men, but this is the position that you chose to play. The thankless position. The position where you're putting it all on the line for the other guy. Hey, I didn't make the game. That's the way the game is. You can't blame me. I'm just reminding you of the position that you wanted to play, that you signed up for from Pop Warner. In this case, it was Skylar Thompson, but it's not the first time we've heard similar issues with the Steelers' offensive line in recent years. And in reality, it predates Pat Meyer, whom the team hired in 2022. The year before that, with significant turnover on the line, they were called out in a game for precisely this. It's inbred in offensive line DNA. You're supposed to pick up your quarterback, Essex claimed on 93.7 The Fan. Speaking about issues on the Steelers' offensive line, it's just our nature as offensive linemen to be protective of the guys that are running and carrying and toting the ball. He's absolutely right. It's a different position. It's the most unselfish position in all of sports, in every single sport in the entire world. But it's the most important position on any sports team in the entire world. Most important. Can't do it without the big men. Essex said it's something he's been noticing for years and didn't like hearing Rodgers note that it's still an issue. To be clear, he didn't take issue with Rodgers publicizing it, but with the fact that it needed to be said, and Essex pointed a finger directly at Meyer. It's good to see that A-Rod spoke up, and I'm glad it got addressed before the season started. You don't want things like that bleeding into the season, he said. But as an offensive lineman, that's something that I hope they took to heart. Coach Pat Meyer, I hope, heard that loud and clear, because that's an environment that should have been set forth already in that room. I'm not going to say a lot of people, because I don't know what people are thinking, but I personally believe that a lot of people will say this is no big deal. Like, oh, who cares? It's not a big deal. He didn't help up his quarterback. I completely disagree with that narrative. I think it's a big deal. I think it's huge. I think it's monumentally gigantic. Because if you're not taking it personal in the most thankless job of the entire planet, you'll give up sacks left and right and just be like, oh, F it. It's just another sack. Who cares? And we all know that the NFL comes down to one or two plays every game. Pretty much every single NFL game comes down to a play or two, and that's who's going to win the football game. So you can't afford to give up one sack, never mind 2 or 3 in a game. Hey, I hope I am completely wrong. I want to be completely wrong. I know that sounds strange, but I want to be completely wrong. I want to see the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive linemen come out and absolutely maul people. And if they give up a sack, take it super personal and help the quarterback up. So once again, I don't want our offensive line. It's not that I want it to be an issue. I want to be 1,000% wrong. And I hope that the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line proves me wrong. And with that being said, thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football, the 4-1-2.